It's like, I can do this, right? Because I doubted that entire year of like, am I really getting out? Am I getting out too soon? Am I taking away an experience that I knew my kids love? My kids love going to the games. My kids love being at everything, the access that they have. But it's like, that came in, and I remember when we sat down, our two oldest boys, and told them I might get choked up. They cried. They were like, what? And we're just like, it'll be okay. We can still go to games. I'm just going to sit with you now. Like, you don't have to,
right.
You have to sit back there. But it's so crazy because, like, at the end of the day, in the grand spectrum, like, no one cares that I got out of college basketball. Like, what are we talking about?
Right. This week on the podcast, we're joined by Matt Olinger, a longtime college basketball jack of all trades who has been on the front lines as an assistant coach, director of operations, director of recruiting, and everything else under the sun. Matt began his career as a manager at Liberty University under Richie McKay and eventually worked his way to an assistant coach position with the Flames. He then joined Bryce Drew's staff at Vanderbilt as the director of basketball operations, where I worked with him for 3 seasons. And after a stint with the Commodores, he joined Mike Young's staff at Virginia Tech as the director of recruiting until 2024. With all the winter weather affecting games across the South, I wanted to get his perspective on being a director of operations at a high major level and what went into operating on the fly in situations out of your control. However, after reminiscing about harrowing travel in his career and the attitude it takes to be an operations person in a high-stress position, our conversation thoughtfully turned to why he left the business, the mental toll of the 24-hour, 365-day grind of being a college basketball coach, how your identity as a person shifts the moment you leave the industry, the gratitude he has for the mentors and places he has been, and the question a lot of us face when we leave the profession: how much am I going to miss this when I'm gone?
I will say that there's not been one thing in the corporate world I've done that's getting you, the adrenaline rush of Riley LaChance banging down a 27-footer to send Florida home in the SEC tournament, right?
Yeah.
You're not repeating that. I'm sorry. You're not going to repeat the feeling of knocking off Duke and winning the first ACC title in Virginia. It's just, you will not come close to that. And, for me, is like, I have perspective. I'm not going to reach that again. That's okay. I was able to have a bite at the apple, was able to be a part of some successful teams, go to some tournaments, do a lot of cool stuff. Like, shoot, like, I'm spoiled, right?
This is the true story of 2 washed-up sports guys who chased the dream, private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and our 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge, the burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is one for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We're 2 former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
I kind of wanted to break the ice here, Olinger.
Is that a pun on the weather too?
It's a pun on the weather.
Point?
So I think we'll get this thing started with this story, and I don't want to mention any names or throwing anybody under the bus, but before a fairly large conference game on the road, you were on a bus stuck in a snowstorm overnight on an interstate. What really happened that night?
I mean, Mother Nature. I mean, if you want to really get down to it, right? We knew storm was coming. It was a big game, and at the same time, you just you really don't know what you're walking into. You also, what most people wouldn't believe, you don't have carte blanche on decisions either. Of just like, hey, like, let's just go now, or let's go the night before. It's sometimes is a committee decision, and by the time you kind of get the green light. What was funny about that trip is the part to physically get to Birmingham was not bad. My recollection honestly was like, I think it was like the last 40 miles, right?
It
We're
was, yeah.
almost to Alabama. So we get stopped. You really can't tell. Like, you got, as you're sitting there though, the part that makes you a little nervous is the snow and the ice was not stopping while we were sitting. And I want to say is, I don't know, maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock at this point. You're almost there. You're not, even for me, who I guess you're responsible for the trip in a way. I wasn't super stressed at the time. And then we progressively just didn't move. And, like what was 30 minutes became an hour. What was an hour became 2 hours. And we had that little moment where we actually did move just a tad bit. And you're like, all right, like, even if we inch along, doesn't matter. Let's get to campus. Let's get checked in. And I think we may have moved. It's hard to like actually say 300-400 yards, and you got to a visual point of what was ahead. And I would imagine, I mean, we still don't know exactly what happened. You didn't really truly see, but whatever stoppage there was, by the time like these trucks and cars had to, like, get back up the next incline, it was covered with ice. Like, you couldn't go. Cars were sideways. You had trucks kind of facing different directions. And it was very clear we were going to be there for a substantially longer time. But even at that point, you think like, all right, like, what is this? Like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And we saw the sunrise on this in the same section. We had snacks and water. I mean, thankfully you're on a bus, like, right? So we never truly ran out of gas, but like, you're not really sleeping. You're not, and I want to say we finally rolled into the hotel that morning. It was about 8:30ish, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
The hotel had breakfast for us. The breakfast was there ready to go because they anticipated us sleeping there the night before, which we did not. Boggs, did we shoot around? I thought we did something just to get the guys loose, but that game was if I remember right,
it was like 4 or something,
yeah,
right?
it was not a late game. So think about it. You've spent the whole night on the bus. You roll in 9:30, 10. You're gonna do some film, eat. I want to say we did something, and truth be told, we did not play terrible. We ended up losing, I don't know, a possession game. It was a good battle, but to think that you would even walk in and do that was a bit was a bit crazy. The one thing that I remember, and I'm gonna box this up because I'm not like I was in Nashville for that time, but I'm not the country music, like, I don't know all the history, but I want to say Travis Tritt, if I'm correct, but the way the traffic had shifted and people were like, all right, we're parking here. So things had moved. We had gotten lined up with another bus, and we were right behind Travis Tritt's tour bus. And so it's even still to this day, when I see that name or I hear a song or something, or somebody says it, I was like, oh yeah, we were behind his tour bus in Alabama for close to 10 hours. So
Overnight.
Yeah. So a memory nonetheless. And of course, like, you get there the next day, it's like, right, everything had melted. You drive back and it was no problem, right? But it's it was a lot. It was a lot.
I feel like stories like that are at the heart of what a director of basketball operations does. The lifestyle. You can have all the plans in the world for trips like this. Sometimes a wrench gets thrown in the way and everybody's looking at the Dobo for solutions and trying to keep a calm head. You're dealing with the coaching staff. A lot of times the coach is one of the most powerful people at the university. And then on the other side, you're having to maneuver around admin in the athletic department while also still trying to stay in touch with all of these different transportation options and lodging and all this stuff. It sounds like madness, but you've got to be calm through it all.
I don't know whether it was just background or having. I also, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I worked for really, really good people everywhere I was at. So I had never worked for a head coach that lost their mind on uncontrollable situations. Now, if you screw something up, that'd be different. But as long as like your job was done and whatever, I mean, I was spoiled in that regard to have just, coaches that understood things. They weren't in some sort of bubble. That wasn't always the case for some colleagues that I knew and things that they deal with. It's like, somehow that you were responsible for a snowstorm. It's like, well, doesn't really work like that. But working on the fly, adjusting during, I say this in jest. There's some of those trips outside of if you weren't flying, but some of those trips via bus, like I feel like you could just do those. You could do it the night before, like, because whatever you plan is going to change, and whatever you have set in stone is just,
Oh yeah,
or there's
no
something,
doubt.
with the practice, like practice went long, or we had to move practice here, or so and so's got a exam that they've got to take. Well, the bus was supposed to leave it. That was common. So all the other stuff on there was fake because I was like, nah, we'll figure it out when we get there. And at that point in my career, I had done it long enough. Not that I was an expert or like, but like you do it long enough to where like, you go, you have your coaches meeting the night before and it's like, all right, like we'll get this stuff situated tomorrow. Um, I have gotten post game food while sitting on the bench in pregame. Like, right there's some things that would, but it's like at the same time, right? You're calling the local Jimmy John's or something. It wasn't super complicated, or it would never fail as whatever you had planned or pre-done. This is the one. I did work for great people, but I did work for people that were picky at times. It's like, you'd have the post game meal all set up, and then the head coach is just like, "Yeah, I'm really thinking Chick-fil-A tonight." It's like, I don't have Chick-fil-A ordered, so like,
Yeah,
there was enough times where I had to call and cancel something and redirect. Where it's just like, I'm actually, I say this joking. It's like, picking a dinner place with my wife. I'm just going to trick her into saying what she wants, and then that's what I'm gonna go do. So, um, learning those pieces I think, was more like learning how to make those decisions for your head coach or for the administration. I think is 90% of the job. It's not
yeah,
physically doing whatever you got to do. If you get trained or institutionalized is probably the best word. It's like you stop thinking for yourself. You're thinking for whatever the head coach wants and
yeah.
what gives you your best chance to keep things moving. And you just kind of you live and you learn that way.
See, I think for me, the problem that I would have had in your position is I would have gone ape shit on people because, like, okay, here's the schedule, and this is why, like, you're the best around. You were the best around because you never let it get to you. At least, outwardly, maybe inwardly, you're,
If you
ready to.
remember, there was a time, and to Bryce, I mean, we're talking, what was that, 2017, 2018, 2019, sometime in
Yeah,
there, all runs together for me. Um, Technology was around, don't get me wrong, but like Bryce still wanted a paper itinerary.
yeah,
That was inevitably going to change. I'm like, yeah, I mean, where you wanted like a red ink too to like mark out all the times we're not following. But if you remember, and it was actually two players that I had coached at Liberty had started Team Sync. And if you remember the app, and
yep,
as crazy as it sounds, I mean, that wasn't introduced till like, late 2016, 2017. Still then, like you were operating by text sometimes, you're calling
yep,
players, whatever. So I did get to the point in that tenure. I still remember with Roger and some of the other people, it's like they would ask me stuff and I just like I wouldn't even answer, just be like, check your app. Like
yeah,
I'm not fielding questions. I would be like a
yeah,
reporter, like,
no
right.
doubt. Yeah,
I'm
you
not
were.
fielding questions right now. It's in the app. And then,
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
getting people ingrained to look at it and check it. Until
Because you're
you
getting
screwed
texts
up and
from
have the wrong
jabronis
time in
like
there,
me, too.
bro.
You're getting texts from jabronis like
Yeah.
me. Like, hey, when are we leaving? Or what's for dinner? Or how can you deal with all this stuff? Because
Yeah.
it changes. Why does it change so much? And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that got me was that I would have gone nuts because
Yeah.
everything, it changes all the time because the parties are so small. It's not like a football party of like
No.
150 people. It's like 30 people or larger now.
Yeah. Some of them are, 30, 35.
Huge.
Yeah.
But it's like dealing with 30 people is a little bit easier. You're really just dealing with the 15 kids and the
Yep.
5 coaches and
Yep.
the one coach probably.
The one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's, to me, it was just such a juggling act, and if you can juggle all that and keep your sanity, which you did very well,
As much as I
it's
let
just
on.
it's such a it's such a great thing to have in your arsenal for future work, future life,
Yeah.
is that, hey, I can deal with these situations, but not get all bent out of shape about it. It's really impressive.
I say jokingly, the only thing that never changed was the game time. I don't care what
Exactly.
storm, what weather, that was the one thing that was firm. Anything else on that itinerary was up for. And like
Yeah.
and this was all three coaches that I worked for. This was common amongst all three of them. And they were all very different. Honestly, all four, I worked for four different coaches. The departure time for the arena was never a set window. It
Mm-hmm.
was never the 70 minutes. It was never like always 90 minutes. It was always decided upon arbitrarily that day at what time they felt we needed to get to said arena, which
Yeah.
is, when you think of it in the context of moving sometimes 25, 30 people around, it's insanity.
So, what was your secret sauce to handling all of these situations and staying level headed and stress free? I know in these situations, a lot of times I would wear my emotions on the sleeves, and a lot of
Yeah.
times it would get the best of me. But everything that Boggs tells me about the job you did, he says you're the best Dobo he's worked with. What are the tips? How did you handle these situations so well?
Honestly, there's the only true thing, in undergrad when you're doing it, never really played, like, right, practice, sure, scout team dummy, all those things, but as a player, like, no. So I never built the mindset that you were ever that important. And the head coach at the time, he reminded us very often that we were not important. It was clear. So that was ingrained just in the industry, right? Not that you're self-confidence, but like, all right, I know my role here. It is what it is. And then I honestly, the first individual that I worked for, Richie McKay, who's still coaching now, doing really, really well at Liberty, hired me. And just like, right, you naturally, I think all of us, right, you can always go back to when you started your career. You're trying to prove that you're, and you just kind of look at those around, you look at different people that you truly respect. And that was a big deal for me. I never had thought about going into coaching. I mean, I wanted to, but I never thought I would get that opportunity. It gets delivered. You just want to do a really, really good job. And but Richie's demeanor, how he carries himself, how he was on the sideline, and how he behaved, and just how he treated people, right? That was my lead in high level college athletics. And Richie at that time was at Liberty, but he had been, Colorado State, New Mexico. He had been in some places now, and he had been successful. He was kind of at like a turning point in his career, and ended up at Liberty, which was great. But like, that was my introduction. So for me, I don't know, you say it, maybe some of it's probably personality, sure, because I've kind of carried that in a lot of things I do. But it's like that was the person that I was going to model after. Not that I was like, did I want to be a head coach at one point? Sure, like we all did. Um, that kind of fizzled quickly as I watched the chaos that ensued behind it. But when you watch just how, somebody like that you truly respect, and I would imagine, Brandon, you have it, Boggs, you have it. There's always somebody when you're in that younger age, and it's like, man, I want to be respected like that. I want to be viewed like that. I want to handle myself like that. And I kind of just, I wouldn't say that I mean, I probably intuitively did model it, but anything that I did in ops and how he handled, bad situations in practice or bad situations in a game or whatever, it was just never too high, never too low. Um, Always treated people with respect. And, one thing that I learned early, because I got in, I was 23 years old when I was hired as a full-time Dobo, which probably had no business getting that job, but is at that age, it's like I was no dummy. I needed a lot of people's help for that to work, and for that to, I didn't command respect as some 23-year-old college, like, kid, like telling people this is what we're doing. So, I think coming into that way, I just had to model it a little bit differently. I'm not going to walk into a room and start telling people what to do. And to get certain things done, I had to have a lot of help. And so I think that's what started it. I don't think I really don't believe it's anything that I innately did, right? It was just the people around me. I say it, and I say it all the time when people ask. I was spoiled, straight spoiled by
Mm.
the coaches that I work for. I talk to all of them still to this day. And a lot of the conversations, which would probably shock some people, they're not really about basketball, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it's about life. And I still see the ones that are head coaches now. There's, you still communicate because you spend so much stinking time together,
Mm.
probably more than what's healthy. But to do it and to do about it around some really, really cool people, successful people on top of that, um, honestly, it says a lot. It says way more about them than it ever does about me.
Yeah, I just think it you evolve as you with the people you're around with, and if
Yeah,
that's your experience, and you're going to be good at your job because the other people around you are good at their jobs.
no doubt.
Um, so just I wanted to touch base on what adobo looked like when you started and what adobo looks like now. I
Yeah,
know
it's
there's like
changed.
probably like 50 times the responsibilities, but what does that look like? Can you kind of compare those two?
Well, a lot of it had to do with rules too. If you go back when I first started, I got in 2007, 2008 was my first season, right, doing it. At that time, you were very restricted on your staff members in a Division I basketball staff. You had a head coach and you had 3 recruiting assistants. That was it. I didn't care if you were Kentucky. I didn't care if you were the Boston Celtics, right? Or you're, Lipscomb or whoever else. That's what you had. So from a budget standpoint, right, those positions were very different at each individual school. So go to the SEC, your Dobo was likely a very seasoned, maybe a head coach who's not a head coach anymore, right? It was a seasoned position like that. That was like an extension of the coaching staff. Or you get down to the lower levels. This was the only way that some of these smaller schools could add additional staff members, right, to take work off the assistants so they could recruit and they could coach more. So when I first started, I did very, very little basketball. I was doing everything from the obvious, our travel, our daily schedule, ended up having like academics, right? Then on top of that, there's all kinds of like your kind of outreach and social parts that the players have got to be at and whatever. You're managing almost their day-to-day schedule. Everything that was almost administrative really fell upon, your desk. I didn't have scheduling at that time, and this is why
Mm.
Richie was really smart. I wouldn't give a 23-year-old kid the keys to the scheduling of your program either. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. A lot of Dobos, probably at the mid-major level, like maybe did some of that, but the entire key was you had no way to allow your assistants to be on the floor more, right? To recruit more and whatever, if you didn't have what the original director of basketball operations position is. So that was, I would say, 2007. As you got more into 2014, 2015, that position evolved because then graduate assistants, money started flowing in. TV revenue started to like really to get infiltrate back to the program. It was there, don't get me wrong, but it started going from the overall, department and started to trickle down to these programs. So what that position started transform into is you were like you kind of oversaw the administrative operation while starting to groom yourself to be the next coach, or you're trying to get that next position. Thankfully, I don't even remember what year I was promoted midway through there. I think I was a Dobo for 3-4 years at that time. I was promoted to an assistant at Liberty, but like, because my experience, I still had that oversight. So you kind of started to see that shift where the Dobo almost became a coach. You had to be careful compliance wise, like, right, you couldn't like work out a player.
Yeah.
You had to be a little careful on the floor, like, right, just depending how strict your school
Yes.
was.
I lived that one
Yeah, you didn't
a
want
couple
to.
of times.
Yeah, you didn't want to be like looking like you're coaching, but you could coach the coaches, right? Like you could know a scout, you could know based on out of bounds stuff, and you could run that up the bench, right? But really, to stay on topic, is after that, as money really, really went to the recruiting, you could kind of feel this NIL piece shift.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't quite shifted, but there were signs like, right, we were starting to do the cost of attendance and different things. is as you, and I would say this probably happened more 2018, 2019, that Dobo became a coach. Like, right. It was strictly a coaching position. Um, and what became the Dobo really became a lot of administrative assistant, and it became because of affordability. Like, you're starting to go up against, programs, especially at the high major level, is their off-court Dobo, or even, I mean, you see it in football. Think of like an analyst, because that's what they really are. And it's like, shoot, that dude's won 300 games at the Division I level.
Yeah.
That's not your Dobo, right? That
Yeah.
person is really strategically, operating within a basketball staff. And then, honestly, fast forward to today's age, I don't think the Dobo title even exists anymore. I could be wrong. I haven't done like a search, but like, even, and you just know people, right? And know a lot of different people at these levels. I don't know a lot of traditional Dobos. What you see is a lot of graduate assistants or a department staff member, maybe not even dedicated to basketball, maybe split between men's and women's basketball. Honestly, that is just doing the travel. But because rules have changed, right? Now you can have 7, 8 coaches on the floor. They don't restrict those rules, like they used to. So, as the rules change, it really made that roles change quite a bit. And when you look at where the money's going and you're starting to pay players, it's like, okay, it's like any business. You're not going to invest a ton of resources. That's not an indictment to anybody who's in those roles, but like the money is, significantly changed amongst staffs. I mean, even you see it in football. And now you're seeing like the chief of staff, GM type role, which has really almost replaced the Dobo. But even those roles, they're 85% basketball. Let's call it what it is. I mean, you're doing administrative stuff, but now you're managing a budget. Like, it's not salary cap, I guess, like, right? But you are.
So help me with this one. Is it that the position has been somewhat devalued, or that position wasn't getting paid what it should have been compared to coaches, and so now they've elevated the title and the responsibilities with the chiefs of staff? I'm just curious on what your take on all that is.
I think it's a mix of both of those things, right? Is the availability to get to 7, 8 coaches, right? Is, if you go talk to any head coach, right, they're going to want the best, whether that's player development, whether that's a defensive coordinator or recruiter. These staffs are they're not siloed, right? You got to be skilled at all things, but like some of these have like, right, you got your ace recruiter. I got my really, really good offensive. You're starting to see it in basketball too, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, right? So these staffs have gotten so much larger, right? Now you got 7, 8 guys on the payroll. You still, you only could have 5. It didn't matter. I didn't care what you did. Everything else was a manager or graduate assistant. But now that these staffs have expanded, if you take the role of like almost like a travel coordinator, which is what the role, that was the entry point, right? The travel coordinator job is still being done. It's still needed. It's just not an embedded almost entity inside these staffs now. It's either somebody at a high administration level within the department, like, right? Maybe they're dedicated to basketball and then an off-cycle sport, right? Because you're just doing the same thing for both. Or you're going to have a administrative assistant, right, that is doing that job for your department. And if you put it in corporate terms, is, your lead of sales, your COO, different things, like, right, by the time you get to your office assistant, it's not that person's devalued, right? It just comes at a very different pay scale and different investment and how that's operated. And so, coming from it, I surely hope those people aren't devalued, but the way the staffs have changed, you're not going to include that in one of your coaching roles, because you're going to go hire the best possible coach that you can financially afford, depending on your needs. So there's just been, I think the responsibilities and how things have changed have really shifted it. I don't know. In some ways, it probably has been devalued at different places. I hope it's not the people have been devalued, but, that role is just not the role, and what it was and how it was created is just not a requirement. I even started where film exchange, you talk about funny times on the road, like film exchange is a Dobo. Like, it was a FedEx intricated,
It was.
like you had to have your own FedEx system, but like sometimes that didn't work. Like, and I'm driving down to High Point and going outside the arena, exchanging a game, turn around, driving back so the coaches can cut up a VHS tape, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is extinct because you just log on and cut up whatever you want, right? So
Yeah.
you think, you know, technology, just things have really changed what the requirements of that role are. And I mean, I've been out of it not super long, but long enough. I bet there's people just using a third party resource to do all that stuff anymore. You may not even have the position. Just someone coordinate it and offsite it to another company, have them deal with it, make them responsible for it.
So
That would not shock me.
So do you agree with where the staffs have gone? I mean, is there 100% more work? I know there's a lot of work going. I mean, you have definitely different things to concentrate on.
Right.
But these staffs have just gotten, I mean, I sound like an old man, but they're just
Yeah.
out of control. I mean, there's more staffers than there are kids. And
Yeah, there's some. There's
I
definitely
don't
some.
know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's obviously a justification for it and people have things to do. But I just kind of want to get your take on that.
No, there's a balance. Don't get me wrong. There's certainly some that are just like astronomical. It's like, come on, like there's no way you're
Right.
just spending money to spend money at that point. And we won't name names or take lists, but every league has them. Like there's always one or two in every league. It's just like, that's ridiculous. Some of these places got to take 2 buses now to do a road trip because they've got so many people. And you're just like,
Wow.
like, you know, post COVID, NIL and everything like this, the whole industry has taken a very quick turn. And for me, it was just like, it was always a lot. Don't get me wrong. It was always, you know, it was 24/7, right? And the minute that you thought it was too much and you thought you were owed more, okay, there'd be a line of 50 people that would take your job, work more hours, and take half the money. So you never had leverage. The only ever leverage you had is if some other program wanted to hire you, right?
Right.
So you could stand on some moral ground of like too much work, whatever. You just had to like eventually make a personal decision. That was always the case as long as I had been in the industry, right? And then you insert NIL. NIL went way faster than it's not even probably like, right. Then the infrastructure is truly prepared, right? So what happened is, you know, like you got two things. It's 24/7, 365. It was
Yes.
probably 24/7, I don't know, 330, give or take, right? There were downtimes. There were times like the kids actually went home. There were times
Right.
that they weren't there all summer in every single minute. The hours used to be super restricted, right? Used to have like your 40-hour, and I can't even remember what some of them were. And not even to dive into it, the thing that really killed me when we would have those delays is that travel day became a day that was work.
That's right.
I forget what game it was we had gotten back, probably the Starkville one. We got back. We were not allowed to practice the day before the game because we had burned up our time getting back home. But
Oh my gosh.
that's a whole
yeah.
other thing. But like those compliance rules and those hours, and I always worked for guys that took that very serious. Like, no, we're out of time. Like that was it. Well, those ended up going away, right? They were like, we need to invest more in the players and do everything else. So to answer your question, Boggs, yes, like because the time demand has also increased.
Right.
And it was also the transition for me. Like it was just going a direction, and it's like my kids started getting older, things started happening, and it's like I I was good. Like, right, I had enjoyed it, I loved it. Still miss parts about it. But like I didn't want to make the personal sacrifice of what I knew that would cost my family. Um, and just the thought of as you get older, it's like, shoot, I got to move 5 6 more times to keep this career alive and keep it going and keep this and it's like I didn't want to do that. Now people that do it, like, more power to you, like, right, do your thing. That was a personal choice of mine. So, you know, I think as you look at these staffs getting, there's some like, right, it's irresponsible, and I got no problem saying it. There are some out there, it's just like, that's ridiculous. But to have the 7 8 coaches and the amount of stuff that goes on, um I mean, shoot, like I even towards the end of it, right, when we're in the middle of it, the portals 24/7, those recruiters are recruiting a lot more. And it's what really came down as guys like me were doing way more basketball on a staff than you realize, right? You're doing way more scouting, way more than was ever done probably pre 2020. Whereas the recruiting assistant, and that's their job, that's your salesperson, that's typically sometimes your highest paid staff member. Like, I'm no fool. Like, I want that guy to have clear mind. Go, like, you need good players. Like, I don't care how good a coach you are. You got bad players, you ain't gonna win. So,
Right.
you know, even for me, it's like, what can I get off your plate? Because you going and getting good players helps us be successful. I ain't
Right.
reinventing the wheel. Like, I'm just, you know, kind of, I know what we're doing and I'm trying to figure out what the other team's doing. It's, you know, there were some complicated pieces, sure, but it's just really switched in this, you know, the portal and NIL. It's just like, I don't know. And it went down a road I was like, I'm good. Haven't regretted it. Still talk to a lot of colleagues. Some of them are, I don't want to say miserable. It's probably a bad way to say it. Like, right? It's just like you're chasing your tail on something that's really not calming down, right? And there's no guardrails in some ways, but it's the industry we created, like, right? Like, we only have ourselves to blame as administrators and coaches and schools, and we could have got ahead of this a lot earlier.
Long time ago.
And you'll never hear me. I never got out and saying we shouldn't pay the players. Never said that 1 second.
Right.
It was just like, this is going a direction. I saw where the value was going, and I was like, I don't think that value is going to go my direction in the next decade.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot. Now there's some super talented people, and they're getting exactly what they deserve, and the money's there.
So you talked about getting out of the business. The sports evolved a ton,
A lot.
which was one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Family time was important to you.
Yep.
As well. Where did mental health factor into things? Because being a Dobo or just doing ops in general is a brutally hard job, mentally and physically.
Yeah. You know, I would always remove basketball out of it, right? Because I think when you would get trapped inside of that bubble and umbrella, like, you think you're dealing with something that's so foreign to, like, no, it's not. Like, other people have high stress jobs. Other people are overworked. Other people have, you know, things that, you know, family life balance, all the things. We all deal with that. That's not privy to basketball. And I think a lot of times, and I would see it, like, right, amongst other coworkers, and you try to help and you try, but like, they would get so trapped inside of this basketball bubble, and it was super unhealthy. Like, and I watched it. You know, I think for me personally, my faith is very important to me. So I always let that ground, or tried to. Like, don't get me wrong, I failed miserably multiple times, but my faith always grounded that. And again, it was just, for me, I just tried to never make it about basketball. But to answer your question, like, right, the mental health it is serious, right? Because you get a lot of individuals, and I got still good friends I talked to today that handled it miserably. And when those mental health pressures come in, you start making poor judgment decisions, whether that's, you know, certainly like cheating. And I use that very liberally, like, right, you know, within the industry, right? Like the paying or whatever, like, everybody's doing it, so doesn't make it right. But like, right, you still, you go out on these limbs. It's like, oh, I got to do this so I can get the next promotion. I can get the next, you know, I can do all that. And I saw it eat a lot of really, really good men and coaches up, right? And it was just, it was sad. You would see it eat up at families, like, right? And I saw it young. Right. I was 23 when I started doing it, and I saw it and I watched it, and I saw, you know, even people make criminal mistakes, but they weren't trying to make criminal mistakes. They think I got to do this to help our team win, or you're embezzling from the school to pay, like, right, just wild stuff. And so, like, I saw it, and I always put, like, you know, if there was one flag I put in the ground, it was just like, it was never going to affect my family. Right. And it wasn't going to be like, I wasn't going to be defined as being a basketball coach. I just never would. That was never going to be it. If I went out in public, I'm a regular person, just like anybody else. I have a job. Is it cooler than your job sometimes? Sure. Yeah. Are we on TV every once in a while? Sure. If you're looking at me, for me, you're watching the wrong thing anyway. Right. So I just always tried to remove myself from it. And, you know, people always want to talk about it, but I think and I still talk to a lot of coaches today, and to me it's like that's always what I view as, I don't know, me still giving back to the game because I take it still serious and I love it. I watch it all the time, watch more than I should, still go to more games than I should. Um, but it's when I'm talking, it's just like always creating that balance and trying to be kind of that level set, because it can really, really eat you up. And if you let it eat you up, it affects all aspects of your life. Um, Thankfully, like I said, I made plenty of mistakes. There were times that it got out of balance, especially going through transition, right? When you don't have a job, you don't know how you're going to get your next job. Those are stressful. They're not fun for families. And when I see it, you hear it, or even it's going to happen. Like you cringe knowing what they're going through. Um, it's a very simple saying, and I think it's used everywhere. But my old boss Mike used to always say, "Just be where your feet are." Like, what is your job today? And doing that job, maybe your job today is investing back home. Like, right? It's not the next play, it's not the next workout, it's not the next recruit. It's investing. And he would always say it: be where your feet are, be balanced, right? Don't be so spread thin that you can't get anything done and you can't operate. And I think that is so true. And I think it is something that affects the industry. And it's not basketball, it's football, it's everything. And again, it's not privy to sports. We all see it in the corporate environment as well. Um, but I think it's an overall life lesson, really. Um, it's taught a little more public in the athletic sector. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody knows, there's a ticker and there's a scoreboard. You find out pretty quick, and other people find out pretty quick, but it's right there at the end of the game, and but outside of that, right, it's, I worry about it for some, especially some that, they're just dedicated, but there's a lot of good resources, and there are so many good people in the industry. There really is. And when you get to know them, you see people's worst moments sometimes, especially head coaches. Like, you see, it is high strung, it's heated, it's stressful during that 40 minutes, but like, you get a lot of those individuals outside of 40 minutes, even if it's your rival. Um, Man, there's some really, really good people. And there are things, even inside the industry, like, right, your rival and other coaches that like your fans hate, like, right, use of Vandy, Tennessee, most recently me, Virginia Tech, right? At both locations, I hope the fans don't hate it. Like, you really had a lot of respect for those
Great dudes.
opponents. Rick Barnes.
Yeah.
I think about Tony Bennett and his staff. I'm not
Yeah.
sure there's better people that were in the game. The game misses people like Tony Bennett, right?
Yeah.
So, you can sometimes build a narrative just by the competition part of it, which is great, and it's what generates a lot of entertainment money. But you do worry about it, and I respect the guys that have just said, like, right, it's too much. I gotta do something different. Um, you just hope that those that don't hang on too long and it affects their health or affects a family health, right? But no doubt it exists. And trust me, it is not slowing down. It's not slowing down anytime soon whatsoever. So,
Yeah. And I think one thing we kind of started this podcast, but we had some struggles with getting out of the business, and I think it had to do with our identity.
yeah.
Like, our identity was sports. Our identity
Yep.
was sitting on the front row. Our identity was talking to guys like you and Bryce and
Yeah.
Coach Stallings
Yep.
and all these other people. And then one day it's not
That's
there.
it.
And so just the mental health part of that, at least for us, I think we're a lot better off now than we were
Sure.
2 or 3 years ago. But I think for people in the business, I think that's the one thing that they're afraid of.
No doubt.
Like,
No
I
doubt.
get out, like, who am I going to be?
Yeah. And I don't
You
know.
know?
Like, it just, like I said, that has a lot more to do about, for me, was more about my faith than it was me. That was more about just not being defined by that. Like, I would rather be defined as like a true Christ follower, a good husband, a good dad, than I ever wanted to be defined by a basketball coach. So that grounded
Right.
me. And like I said, I say it all the time, I failed at that more than I succeeded at it. But so when I made that transition, like, it was okay. But I still talk to coaches today, some that have finally made the leap. They're so scared to get out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're prepared. Yeah, I don't care
Right.
what industry you go in, you'll be fine. Like, you've had we said it before, like, you got a PhD and master's in handling situations and you're fine. Like if you want to stay in it, stay in it. Don't stay in it because you're scared that you won't be successful. If you're ready, to do something else, do something else. And then there's also a handful of guys, and it's fine. Don't get me wrong. It's like you need to stay in your best skill sets in basketball. Like you're not ready to go into the corporate world. Like you should probably keep doing what you're doing. And I jokingly say that because there's people that come to mind that have had that conversation with them. Like, yeah, I think you should keep going. And it's hard because for some of these guys, like, right, the money is so good and it's hard to replicate that money, right? And especially get to some of those super high levels. I was very well compensated, supported my family through that industry, which is just mind boggling, right? Like, never like, right, never stressed about, bills and different things like that. But I wasn't at such a tier either that my transition for me was like, okay, like I can come out and prove myself. And that in the corporate world has proved like that trajectory went up pretty immediately. But you do have some, and I get it. It's hard. Like, some of these guys are compensated very, very well. Yeah, you're not going to find that in the corporate world. You got to go re-earn that and reprove yourself. Like, right, what you said, the identity of it, being a part of it, when you're in the middle of it. And that's the thing. Everybody wants to do it or see it or be behind the scenes. And then you get the opportunity to do it for so long. It's like, man, like walking away from that's a lot. Thankfully there's still some really good friends that are still doing it. I can still get that little piece of the access. And then shoot, it literally just happened. I was down in Dallas and I was there for work, and Virginia Tech, my old boss. So I texted him, I said, hey, I'm in town. He puts me right behind the bench. The Hokies play great. And not going to come up with his name. Little guard hits a 60-foot runner, half court shot, bank. Game over. Up to 2 seconds ago, they lose. And I'm walking out of there. It was great. I feel terribly for them. And I'm like, I remember that. Your next 48 hours is
just brutal.
It's brutal. You can't sleep. You don't want to eat. Like there's nothing else until you get that next game and you shake that off. And I'm like, you also walk away from some of those. It's like, man, thank God I'm not feeling like that tonight, tomorrow. Those are just some of the things. And then, there's other games that you go to and you're in the second deck and you're like, man, this is not a good seat. Like, why am I watching this game? Like, well, because you had such a good, you had a front court seat to the action. So there's bits and pieces of it. Like I say all the time, like I loved it. It just became a pivotal personal point to step out and, saw a friend on Wednesday night. Like, right, I said, I see more than I probably should. Saw him Wednesday night. He's coaching at Wofford now. And they played at VMI, which is not far from where I live. And like, right, I was in the Big South. So I've played so many games in there. Just like it starts to toil up all those memories. You're younger, you're grinding, and they won, which was awesome. And it's just like, right. So being able to still see, guys that you came up in the business with, guys that you came up in the industry in, you think Boggs, somebody like Jake Diebler, that's doing a great job at Ohio State. Like it just like you still have that, like, right. I don't know, have this conversation in 10 years and, I don't even know half these people anymore. Maybe you feel different. So I'm still connected enough where you get, those points and you get the rush of it. But you'll never replace it. I will say that. There's not been one thing in the corporate world I've done that's given you, the adrenaline rush of Riley LeChance banging down a 27-footer to send Florida home in the SEC tournament, right?
Yeah.
You're not repeating that. I'm sorry. You're not going to repeat the feeling of knocking off Duke and winning the first ACC title in Virginia. It's just, you will not come close to that. And, for me, is like, I have perspective. I'm not going to reach that again. That's okay. But there's still a lot of cool pieces. Coaching your kids' games, being at school events and things like that. You know what? I was able to, I was able to have a bite at the apple, was able to be a part of some successful teams, go to some tournaments, do a lot of cool stuff. Like, shoot, like I'm spoiled, right? People go 20 years in their career and don't get those opportunities, and they work tirelessly to get one, right? I was spoiled enough to be a part of championship teams. I still talk to some of the, several of the players, like, right. Like those bonds will never disconnect. You're not going to repeat that moment,
Right.
but the bond and some of those people that you're with, like you spend so much time together, it's hard to eliminate, it's hard to eliminate those relationships and different things. And so, really cool, really cool what you guys are doing. Not sure if I even helped or told cool stories, but the behind the scenes of it's not as pretty as people think sometimes. They want the videos and the locker room stuff. Well, there's a reason why a lot of that's not out. It's probably not good for public consumption. So
Yeah.
You were in the business for over 15 years.
Yeah.
Boggs and I, we've talked about this endlessly when we evaluate our career, whether they're valid thoughts or not. We've explored a lot of our feelings over the years.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we discuss, did we stay in it too long? We were both in the business 40 plus combined years.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own story and experience and priorities in life. But did you ever think about those things now looking back? And then two, are you enjoying life on the outside?
Yeah. When we were fired, it's fine. We got fired at Vanderbilt, right? Didn't have the best kind of last season, had some success. A lot of different circumstances were around that. And look at the success they're having today once they kind of got a lot of that stuff lined up right, and still root for them. No bitterness there. But when that had happened, I at that point, because of the hurt and just like we had so much momentum, things were going well, career wise, for me personally was going well. I was ready to be done then because like you felt rejected by the game, right? And again, this goes back to the identity piece is like, no matter like, right, I can sit here and say all these things that I thought and, try to put it on these principles. Well, okay, like you lose your job and you don't know how. And my wife was pregnant at the time with our third kid. You're about to lose insurance. I didn't have a job like waiting on me out the door. And, when that contract ends, that contract's over. Like it's done. Like, my wife's got appointments and I'm just like, what are we going to do? Like you feel very rejected, not only by the industry, but just the sport. And it's just like, I was done at that point, but I was done out of like, sure, at the time, bitterness, different things. And I was good. And even when Mike Young called about joining Virginia Tech, the situation was good, but it's like, do I want to move? You're living in Nashville. Like I could probably find a job, like, right, skills translated, whatever. And, we had kind of made the decision as a family. It's like, we'll give it a go. We love Mike. So you knew what you're walking into. It wasn't going to be a situation where you're, one and done, or the person you're working for is so miserable. And then did it, had some success. And then I felt it where it wasn't an emotional decision of, either rejection or even success, right? It wasn't like, all right, I checked that off. I'm good. I'm out. I felt the twist. And so personally, I wonder at times, did I stay in too long? Because the corporate side, things have translated well and you get so much time, but I don't know. I look at it now and maybe it's still new. I don't know. Ask me in 5 years. Like for me personally, I felt like I got out at the perfect time, right as the switch happened. For me, it was fine. I haven't regretted it. Like, right. I have no desire to go back. I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I have zero desire to go back and do it. It's kind of like one of those, like, right, door closed. It was awesome and felt like I transitioned at a good time. But, also I think you guys probably have the same things. There's so many things that you learned, right? It was never the job. It's like, right, dealing with people, dealing with high stress moments, dealing with, all the things that we've discussed. And I'm sure many of your other guests have discussed too. It's like all those things translated. And it's almost like starting a second point of your kind of career life. Like, right. Not that I'm old. I'm also not young now. So it's like, for me, if I could draw it up, I don't know. It kind of worked itself out in a really good way. And two, what I like, and, obviously I'm not Mike Krzyzewski, right? So I always wanted to go out on my own terms. That wasn't a selfish thing. I just didn't want to go out in something that was so bad. Now you're living in a town like, right, that say you lost your job and you're now forced to do some other things. And I also had the first guy I talked to, and like I said, Richie McKay was an unbelievable mentor. Still, I talk to him. He would like to talk more. I try to remind him I have a corporate job now. I don't just get to, be on the phone. But we still talk a lot. And he even said it. He said this early when I was like, weighing interviews, and he had moved on to some other things. It's like, always run to something, don't run from something, right? And I had used that in every single opportunity, whether it was different jobs and interviews I had in the industry, or even opportunities to get out. And when the one I had presented, it's like, man, that's right up my alley. Get to do some cool stuff. So like it has nothing in common with athletics. So it's not like I ran to another sports job, but it was just like, it was the right exit point. And as I look back, I'm like, I don't know that it could have worked out better. Thankful for it. I don't think it's because I have some sort of epiphany or I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm not. So it just, thankfully for me, it was the right time. And I got to decide it, right? Like it was like I got to come to grips with it. And I kind of felt it in that last season, and I was able to enjoy it. Was all personal. No one knew. Like my wife knew. You had to keep it zilch. And I'm like, I think this is it.
Yeah.
And I think the unique part is too, and I mean this in the most positive way, all the things that I miss about college athletics and the things that I enjoyed, and this isn't a statement of like it's going in the wrong direction, but those things that I miss, they're not coming back, right? The having Luke Cornett come up 4 years in a row and the senior night and those moments, or a couple pivotal players we had at Tech, a Hunter Couture who spends 5 years in his COVID, like you truly get to ingrain with those people and their families. I'm not saying it's impossible. Not saying that guys don't stay 4 years and different things, but like that relationship and day to day and the ups and downs that you spend with a core group of people, those are the things that you remember. I remember a lot less games than people think. I remember moments. Like you remember
like moments and people.
Yeah, like, and some of it's just really stupid stuff too. Like, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the things. I hope they still exist. I feel like it's gotten so transactional. And it has to be. That's where it's going. It is what it is. But those transformational pieces, there are some really transformational coaches that are still doing it. I know they're having an impact, but I feel like that part's dwindling. So that's always my piece. The parts that I miss, I don't know that they exist wholeheartedly anymore. I don't know. It's probably, that's not a bad thing. I don't know. So
I have kind of a weird question. I know we got to get you out of here
you're
soon.
good.
We can't keep you forever, but so when you were making this decision, did you have? This is really weird, but did you have like the universe kind of sending you messages like, "Hey, I saw this," or something happened to kind of spark, or is it just your family that kind of did it for you? Were there like moving parts kind of happening around you where you decided, okay, this is something I really have to do?
There was, the last year, this was one piece that was just like, it was hard. The last year, I made it to my oldest son who was starting to get into sports more heavily. Like, right, we're not talking the rec stuff. We're also like not AAU, but like things you want to see and be a part of, right? I had made it to one of his games, the entire season. And he wasn't bitter about it, but it's also, and I worked for the best. He's still there. Mike Young is the best. If my son was playing a game at 10 a.m. and shoot around was at 11, he'd be like, show up when you get here, be at your son's game. But like game time, travel, like, right, I can't not get on the plane, go to the game. I had a job to do, right? And that's a byproduct of it. So you're gonna miss that. So that last year, that was one sign. I also, with the same company I ended up joining, is they were asking me to do, like in the off times, right, just some leadership stuff. Like, hey, like, would you speak to this team? Would you do that? And I would come in and just ingrain or do some, like, I guess, call it consulting. And for me, it was like, it was impactful because what the game and sports teaches to them was impactful. I was just a byproduct. I wasn't giving them any specific like nuggets. Like I'm not John Maxwell over here, right? But I'm like, I've been a part of some really good leaders. Here's what they would do, or here's how they approach that situation. And you could see the impact it did. So if there was anything in the universe where I was like, you kind of get your feet under you, it's like, I can do this, right? Because I doubted that entire year of like, am I really getting out? Am I getting out too soon? Am I taking away an experience that I knew my kids love? Like, right? My kids love going to the games. My kids love being at everything, the access that they have. But it's like that came in. And I remember when we sat down, our two oldest boys, and told them I might get choked up, they cried. They were like, what? And we're just like, it'll be okay. We can still go to games. I'm just going to sit with you now. Like, you don't have to,
right.
you have to sit back there. But it's so crazy because, like, at the end of the day, in the grand spectrum, like, no one cares that I got out of college basketball. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
And the minute that I left, they're going to hire somebody the next day, and it won't matter. It doesn't matter. And so there is a get over yourself process. And then too, like we said, those signs were more internal. It's like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to move 5 more times? I didn't want to go through all that. I didn't. I hope Mike coaches for the next 20 years. Like, he probably won't. Like, right? And then it's like, do you want to do that? And I was with somebody that I loved, and I'm like, you know what? This is the time to take the exit ramp. And thank God the exit ramp was there, right? I could do it, and I could transition. There's about a 4-month overlap that was too much. I was still doing a bunch of stuff, because it's a friend and it's somebody you respect and you want to leave in a bad spot. I actually finished up their schedule that year, still like August. I was still working on that one. But you just want to leave it the right way. And just because you have so much, like, I had so much appreciation and gratitude for what the sport, the game, college athletics had given to me and my family. It's like, I just wanted to make sure when I stepped out that it was, here you go, step into the desk, like, do your thing. I will say that immediate following year, I stayed away a lot. I mean, I'm still in Blacksburg today. I could drive and walk into that facility anytime with open arms, like, right. I stayed away. Like, I needed to have that separation. I'd watch the games, like, right, would still watch time, but like, I didn't go to many. They were in a tough NIL year, and I knew they wouldn't be good, so I didn't want to watch them not be good either. But then as things have changed, like, right, I've probably, even this year, probably been 7-8 games, like, right, and get to actually consume it as a fan and as a supporter, and there with my kids, and I know exactly what they're doing half the time, and that's fun, but like, right, there's parts of it. So I don't know. I don't think it could have worked out in a better situation, and I couldn't be more grateful for how it transitioned, right? And honestly, take zero credit for it. It just, opportunities met, and I don't know. Thankfully, I think I made the right decision. If I was still in it, I'd still be giving it 100% if I was in it, right? So that wouldn't have changed. But I got a lot more Saturdays on my hands, which is nice. So it's nice. And Friday, come 3-ish, probably not going to be doing a whole lot, right? Where some Friday nights you're not getting home to 8-9 o'clock. So it's been great. Honestly, it's been great. And company I work for is awesome people. So like I said, I couldn't have wrote that. There's no way. Just couldn't. Just thankful it worked out the way that it did, and blessed that I had the opportunity to do it as long as I did, right? So really cool.
One of the experiences that always stands out to me, and all three of us have experienced this, making the NCAA tournament, March Madness, is just so high up in just everything I experienced.
Yep. And like, you can't describe it either. You can't describe it to people. And the thing is, what I say all the time is, like, it is so hard to win. It's so hard, and so much goes into it. And then, like, little minor things can, like, tweak that, right? The line between a win and a loss most nights is very, very small, super small. And to get to the end of a season and culminate that with being one of the 64, 68, whatever teams that got to be in there, and the entire sports world is focused on that weekend. I mean, it is, and then the way you're treated, the royalty, like, right, it is a feeling and an experience, like, right, like, I have like, I'm not going to repeat that, right? That buzzer sounding for the ACC championship and confetti's rolling down, and like, you're just like, you kind of just stand there and you take it all in. It's like, this is a moment that you can't, you're going through the line. It's Duke. It's Coach K's last year. There's 5 first-round draft picks. And we did it soundingly. Like it wasn't luck. And so, as you said, like when you look back, those moments will always, like, right? Every NCAA, shoot, you can't tell I'm not proud of it, right? Like those experiences were the best. And like, there was 7 of them I had the privilege of being a part of. Like there's no greater feeling. And to be able to like be a part of those in all different locations, and still go to places now, like Boggs. I was in Salt Lake, and you're sitting there. It's like, we played there in 2017 or 20. I don't even know what year now, but
try to forget that one.
Yeah, that was one of those endings. But it's an unrepeatable, undescribable feeling. Unfortunately, I never had the Sweet 16 moment or something like that.
Right.
But you always want more. Like it never ends. Like, oh, that was good. It's like, oh, Final Four, national. It always goes that way. Unfortunately, never got there. But I tell you what, like you can go back to, and even for me, like those teams that made the NCAA tournament, right? I can give you the entire locker room. Like you never forget the people that you got to that point with, right? You never forget it. I can go back to the first team, to the last team, and you can go down that entire roster. You can see where people were sitting, right?
Yeah.
Like there's times I can tell you where CBS was in, like I can see the locker room. And those are the things, like, right? It just, it's what you do it for too. Like you do it for that moment. And it's probably very few times where you feel like all right, that was worth it. Like, right. 900 hours. But like, that moment when you were there and you see your name called and then you come out, like it's just like, this is pretty darn cool.
I've talked about that before with Barca, and every year in March I kind of got this tinge of because I tell people it's not really about the game. No. It is about the game. You want to win, but it's also about the people who are sitting across from you on the bus. That you're probably going to go to their wedding. Or you may be there for the birth of their child. Or you're going to be there through tough times and good times. And you always remember those times. And there's something about sports that does that. Like there's no other job. Maybe there are, but sports just puts you in you're all in the same boat and you're all facing different challenges. But you just have that connection, and you always will have that connection. It's so crazy.
Well, I think there's very few situations in life, like, right? And use a basketball game, like, right? We all have a million things going on, life swirling, but like it shuts down for that, for that 40 minutes, that 2-hour time frame. Like you have no idea what's going on other than that next possession, right? Or, that next timeout, and I just don't think there's just very few things that you can repeat that way. Like it just doesn't exist. It probably gets overblown, right? And people that haven't been a part of it, you can't describe it to them.
No.
But having that moment, it's like what you said, all the people on the bus, and it's just like, we did it. We made it, right? And, growing up as a kid in Indiana and going to NCAA tournament games and watching that. And then, you're growing up, you remember them wheeling in the TV with the strap over the top.
Oh yeah, man.
It's like a Thursday. We got to watch March Madness, those moments, and just being able to be a part of those. Unfortunately, the Vandy one, we were a part of a not so good one. It was maybe good for them. We opened the NCAA tournament in COVID at Virginia Tech, hit a buzzer beater to go to overtime. Just some cool stuff. So it's just like to be able to be a part of one of those moments that you may see on a replay or something is pretty cool. Really, really cool.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.